Welcome everyone to Talk Junkies, and I'm just gonna go over today. I'm just gonna hit up the Chiefs playoff preview and just to see what's really going on. In regards to my last video, it was just a bitter loss for the Chiefs, right? Some people say we may have lost to the better team, but I don't necessarily see that to be true. Maybe Seattle's a more complete team than the Chiefs when it comes to the offense and defensive side of the ball, because obviously we know that the Chiefs have a lot of questions on defense, but um, obviously when it comes to offense, there's absolutely no contest when it comes to who's a better team offensively, and that's the Chiefs. They're number one offense in football. But anyways, first off, the Chiefs have to beat the Raiders, and the Raiders have been doing pretty decently the past few weeks. They beat the Broncos 27-14. They beat the Steelers, and they lost to the Bengals, and they lost to the Ravens. They lost to the Chargers. They beat the Cardinals. So I don't think that this week is really going to be too much of a matchup for the Chiefs, especially with it being at home. I know that the Raiders and John Gruden would like to spoil the Chiefs' first-round bye and put them in a fifth seed position in the playoffs. I just don't see that happening unless Andy Reid decides he doesn't want to start anyone on the defensive side of the ball, which obviously that's not going to happen. That's just a joke for anyone out there listening. But our biggest threats are going to be Jordy Nelson. I mean, he has 82 receptions. Just kidding. Just kidding. Anyways, we'll just have to see what this week brings. The Raiders played us pretty tough a couple weeks ago, forced us to score a touchdown to beat them 40-33. And I think it's going to be something similar this week. When it comes to the Raiders, and their only hope at beating the Chiefs is it's going to be Derek Carr trying to play his booty off. And it's just it all depends on how much pressure we're able to get on Derek Carr. And with it being at home with the crowd, and I know some people may say that Arrowhead is an advantage, but it still has to be some sort of an advantage this week whenever we play them. It's going to be a great game. I think the Chiefs are going to come out on top, and they're going to get that first-round bye. With that being said, the Chiefs, if they do get the first-round bye, let's see what it's looking like. I know that we could. I mean, it's the Colts versus Titans. Whoever wins, they're in. So they'll be the 6th seed, and the Ravens will have the 4 seed. It looks like, unless they lose to the Chargers. Or no, sorry, not the Chargers. Man, I'm off my game today. But unless, we would be the 1 seed, and then New England would be the 2 seed. 3 seed would be the Texans. And then 4 seed would be the Ravens. 5 seed would be the Chargers. 6 seed would be the Colts or the Titans. Now, the Colts would end up playing. My mind is not working very well. 3 seed plays 6. 4 seed plays 5. And then the winner of that, so we'd play either the 3 or 4 seed. We'd either play the 4 seed or the 5 or 6 seed. Now, out of any of those teams, let's just think about it like this. We've lost to the Titans in the playoffs last year. The year before that, we've lost to the Colts in the playoffs, and then we lost to the Patriots in the playoffs. So the only difference this year is at quarterback with Alex Smith and him not playing and having Patrick Mahomes. And my only concern, and this is just a concern, and the only reason it is a concern is because it's his first full year. He's 1-4 in primetime games this year, and in the playoffs, it's not going to be much different. I mean, I'm not sure entirely. I mean, with Texas Tech, he really didn't play in any really big bowl games, so that is going to be the question for Patrick Mahomes: is he able to turn it up? And he has turned it up. I mean, the average points per game in the 4 losses this year is like 38 points per game. So the only real question mark was the Rams game when he had 5 turnovers, 2 fumbles, 3 interceptions. That's the only game he really looked bad. So all the other games he played extremely well. He did have opportunities to beat the Rams. We gave Tom Brady too much time on the clock. Against the Chargers, I mean, that game was bad play calling if you ask me. And then last week against the Seahawks, it was obviously the defense and Andy Reid's decision not to start Scandrick and Ron Parker and Eric Berry leaving with the last 2 drives on the field. So with all those things being said, is Patty going to have nerves in the playoffs? Is he going to be able to turn it up and play well in the playoffs? And that's really the only question. We all know losing Kareem Hunt is a really big loss for the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. We really haven't found that answer at running back. Damian Williams looking a little decent at times. He plays he runs the ball. He has a lot of speed. But when it comes to him, we really don't have many other options. I mean, Charkandrick had the touchdown last week, a great catch, and he bobbled the catch a little bit. But that's just going to be the biggest thing. I mean, Andy Reid's going to have to trust Patrick Mahomes and let him loose. And I don't know if Andy Reid's going to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? Let him loose. If we get Sammy Watkins back in the playoffs, I think that's obviously a big help because Chris Conley has regressed a little bit. Demarcus Robinson hasn't been playing, that well, And then Travis Kelce last week getting guarded. You saw if you shut him down, what it really leaves with the Chiefs left. And I don't know. There's just a lot of concerns on the defensive side of the ball. If Eric Berry plays a whole game, which he has to, I think he's to the point now where he can play a full game. Whether or not he plays a full game against the Raiders, we'll see what his pitch count is because for some reason he's on a pitch count in the NFL. It's not baseball, folks, but it's just frustrating, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens because defensively our front 7 are really, our front 4 are really good. Chris Jones, Allen Bailey, he's shown signs this year. Justin Houston, he's not playing at the caliber level that he should be playing with the contract that he has, but D Ford playing at an elite level. Last week he had a few quarterback pressures, but Russell Wilson's really good at getting the ball away. You have to make sure you stay in your lanes. That way he doesn't run the ball on you. And the Chiefs did hold Russell Wilson, I think it was like to 50 rushing yards or something like that. So I think they did a good job of containing him, minus a few plays where Allen Bailey had him in his arms for a sack on a 3rd down and let him go and run for 17 yards. Those are the things, man. And in the playoffs, and if we have the playoffs at home, yes, we do play better on defense at home. But you look back to the Chargers game, it didn't matter because Phillip Rivers had his way with our defense. And our defense and our secondary is it has to be, the worst maybe ever. Statistically in the top 10 worst secondaries maybe of all time that have played football on the NFL level. So with all these things being said, whether we play the Colts or the Titans or we play the Chargers or the Ravens, I think that or maybe even Pittsburgh at this point, I think if the Ravens lose and Pittsburgh wins, they win the division. But any of those teams come to Arrowhead. And once again, we still have to beat the Raiders. I'm not forgetting about the Raiders. Don't forget. Because if we end up playing on the road, that's just going to be even scarier. We would end up playing, either at the Chargers or, whoever else, or at the Steelers. But, man, I just don't really know what to think about it because I think the difference is, defensively, I think we're a similar team to what we were last year. Obviously, we've gotten worse on the defensive side of the ball. But if we ended up playing the Colts or the Titans or, one of those two teams, I think that we have a very decent chance at beating either of those teams. The Colts probably scare me a little more than the Titans. I'd like to get some revenge on either of those two teams, but Andrew Luck's been playing lights out this year. He's got to make a case for MVP this year with the way that he's thrown the ball and the comeback wins that he's had. And if we end up playing the Colts and it's Andrew Luck versus Patrick Mahomes, I think that's going to be a great game to watch. I think that'd be a very good game for the NFL. But that would just be crazy, man. Playing the Colts here in Kansas City, it's the same story that we've seen so many different times as a Chiefs fan. And you would think that this time we have to win. We would have to win, And man, I couldn't say that we would win for sure because Andrew Luck's such a good quarterback. He's, I think, 36 touchdowns this year. He would just have his way with our defense. There's no other way around it. I know Andrew Luck probably doesn't get the ball out as quick as Russell Wilson or Phillip Rivers. I think that he stays in the pocket a little bit more. Even if he gets outside the pocket, I think the Chiefs can contain Andrew Luck. I think that they could get a lot of pressure on him. And the mismatch, though, is going to be at tight end and then T.Y. Hilton at wide receiver. We don't have anyone who can guard those players. They have a decent running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, so we'd have to watch out for screens and stuff like that. So that would be the Colts. I mean, man, if we, that would just be tough, man. I think that we would beat the Colts if we play the Colts. If we have to play the Titans, I think that that's a better matchup. Granted, Derrick Henry or whatever his name is, who rushed, I mean, he just tore us up last year in the playoffs. I think if we get another shot at that with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback, I don't think that the Titans can keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs on the offensive side of the ball. I know that they could run the ball down our throats, which would most likely happen, but I don't think Mariota is going to get lucky again with throwing himself a touchdown. And even if he had another 14-point, 17-point lead, I don't think he's going to be lucky enough again. They don't have enough offensive weapons to stay with the Chiefs in the playoffs. So I think we beat the Titans. I think that it's extremely close with the Colts. If we play the Chargers again, I think that in Arrowhead, I think we beat Phillip Rivers this time. Antonio Gates had that big fumble last week and pretty much cost them the game against the Ravens. And I just don't see Phillip Rivers beating us again. So either of those three teams I feel comfortable playing. We played the Ravens defensively. I mean, I don't like their quarterback. The way that they run the ball. I think in the playoffs, and I know their defense is scary, and they have one of the top defenses in football, the top defense, but we already beat them once. I know it was on some Mahomes magic. But either way, if we play the Ravens as well, I think we beat the Ravens too, especially at home in Arrowhead. It's just, I know that all they're going to do is run the ball, but it's the same story. And I think that with Mahomes this time, knowing that he's in the playoffs and it's one and done, I think that he's going to take over the game more in any of those situations, either of those three or four teams that we play. I think Mahomes will take over. He's 2 touchdowns short of 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards passing, which only one other player in the history of football has done in the same season with Peyton Manning. So he's in really good company, and I know that season accolades really don't mean much in the playoffs. And seeing Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is the biggest thing that we need to look for because he's never done it before. This is his first time. He showed some stage fright against the Patriots when we played them on Sunday Night Football, so we have to look out for that. He's overthrown wide receivers wide open this year on the big stage, and those are the things that he's going to have to correct in the playoffs in order to make a Super Bowl run. I remember seeing a statistic with the worst defense from a Super Bowl team, and it was the Giants the year they went. I think it was like 2007 or 8 or whenever the Giants went to one of their Super Bowls. They had the 25th ranked defense in football going into the playoffs, and then and once they hit the playoffs, they only allowed 14 points per game. So the Chiefs do have to look forward to something, and that's granted, it's a completely different team than the Giants. And, I mean, they had a bad defense, and our defense is most likely a lot worse when it comes to the secondary. But Bobn Sutton has to do something probably that he's never done before, and that's do something different. He needs to do something different. He needs to get his head out of his booty, and he needs to realize what is at stake here, and that's a Super Bowl championship for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it is plausible. It's 100% respectable to think that the Chiefs could go to the Super Bowl this year. It's been that way for a very long period of time from any of the major sports networks that you look at, that the Chiefs do have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. Granted, the last few weeks, it hasn't necessarily looked like that with the way that we've been playing, with the coaching decisions that have been made within the past few weeks, with Bobn Sutton being Bobn Sutton for the past 2 years, with the worst defense but don't break, but we've been broken all over the place. He has to do something different in Bobn Sutton. He needs to wake up, look at himself in the mirror, and say, I'm not going to run nickel and dime majority of the game. I'm not going to keep Daniel Sorensen in to play against the run. You know, stuff like that, small things like that. Those are the things that, I don't know. So, in saying that, I hope that Bob does do something different. I mean, scheme-wise, whenever something's not working in the game, being able to adjust to that, like the way that teams adjust to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I think that why is Bobn Sutton not doing that? And people say he's a well-respected coach in football and the NFL, but he has to be able to adjust. And calling blitzes at the right time, blitzing the quarterbacks in the right time, whether it be Phillip Rivers or Marcus Mariota or Andrew Luck, you know, things like that, or Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady. You know, he's played these teams so many times that he needs to have a plan. You have the players that you have. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. Do something about that. Play to the best of their ability. A lot of people have been going against Bob Sutton this year, saying that he doesn't get the most out of players, and that Anthony Hitchens played so well last year with the Cowboys, and look at him this year. He's regressed as a player. And does it happen overnight in the NFL? Of course, sure. I mean, why not? But to the level of what Hitchens has played this year, I don't think that you can credit all of that to Hitchens playing the way that he's playing it. Some of the blame has to go on Bob Sutton. He needs to, like I said, look at himself in the mirror and say, man, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to play to these teams. I'm going to play aggressive. I'm going to play smash mouth football. I'm going to get some turnovers. We didn't have one turnover against the Seahawks last week. Not one. I know we got 2 picks from Phillip Rivers, but what did that do? I mean, because against the Chargers, Andy Reid, his play calling, in my opinion, on a few of the drives were questionable at best. But Bob Sutton is the key, man. He's the key to the road to the Super Bowl. Whether you like it or not, it's not Patrick Mahomes, man. If it is Patrick Mahomes, he cannot have one mistake in the playoffs. Not one. He can have 0 mistakes. He can have 0 missed opportunities. And if he does that, I think the Chiefs have an opportunity, but it's very low probability that happens because he is human. He's not a robot. He will make mistakes. And we have to expect that. For as well as he has played this year, we cannot not expect Patrick Mahomes to make a few mistakes in the playoffs. With that being said, Bob Sutton needs to have his back, and he needs to get ready and get his defense ready to turn the ball over, which is what the Chiefs have been big on the past few years, is turnovers. And if you can get points off turnovers, that's even better. But it's playing Chiefs defensive football on Bob Sutton. And the way that they play defense is getting pressure on the quarterback and creating turnovers. And if Bob Sutton doesn't do that for Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs will have an early out in the playoffs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you want, turn on the bell notification. I do 1 or 2 videos a week. I probably should up that. And this is, I know, kind of went off on a rant here and some stuff like that. But those are just my thoughts on the playoffs for the Chiefs. If I had to guess, I think that the Chiefs win their first game and they will lose. They will lose in the divisional, or no, sorry, they'll win their first game in the divisional round, and then the AFC Championship game they will lose. Now, I'm not entirely sure who it's going to be to, but if we do if Bob Sutton does the things that he needs to do and adjust the defense, I think the Chiefs could go to the Super Bowl. Not entirely sure if they would win it. I'd have to see who we play, but the key to the Super Bowl is Bob Sutton. 100% his scheme, getting the players to buy in to what he wants them to do, and getting the best out of those players. If he can get the best out of all the players on our defense, I think that the Chiefs have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Alrighty, folks, enjoy the video. Let me know what you think, and have a good day.